Amid the bad report card grades and amid the uncertainty for the future, there is one thing that is for certain. The Arizona Cardinals only have fantastic options on what to do with the 16th overall pick.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, leave a like on the video, leave a review where reviews are left if you so desire. You know the drill. After yesterday, with the dead last 32nd graded team that the Arizona Cardinals are, across the NFL. I thought some positivity before, the combine really starts to absolutely kick off was necessary. And for those that have listened to me or watched me for a while, you know that this is never forced. I'm like, you know what? Let's get positive for no reason whatsoever. I'm not going to do that here. I treat you like adults. The Cardinals can do no wrong at 16. I'll explain three very, very awesome options for the Cardinals, all of which, barring any sort of unforeseen events, will benefit this team moving forward. First, I did need to mention, because, this came out after I recorded, that the Cardinals dropped a report that there's a $100 million, facility upgrade that's in the works after, of course, the third year of getting just absolutely lampooned by these report cards. It's like, oh yeah, no. We've got something in the works. Bologna sandwich. I call that first off. They haven't broken ground on it yet. It's set for 2027. Give me a whole lot of beluga whale break on that. Okay? Give me a break. But regardless, now Michael Bidwell is forced to do it, so he's doing it. I call hooey fish on this. Although it's been going on, I promise. We've been hard at work thinking about what to do. Stop it. Doesn't matter. Anyways, regardless of that, and with a reset here, what I've discussed since Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon came in, what I've described the way to win for the Arizona Cardinals is to look at it like this. For those that have been to outdoor weddings that have inclement weather, I went to a wedding a handful of years ago in Nashville. Started raining so hard right after the wedding, and luckily for them, they had a tent set up, which is where everybody was going to be, that kind of, obviously kept the water out and allowed them to do a wedding reception outside. That's kind of what we're looking at with Monty Ossenfort. Michael Bidwell is State Farm Stadium. Monty Ossenfort down all the way to the, to the players is a wedding tent smack dab in the middle of State Farm Stadium, protecting from the idiocy, ineptitude, dysfunction, irrationality, and all of those things that Michael Bidwell has brought in spades ever since taking over for his pups. And obviously it wasn't better beforehand. So with all of this noise, this isn't new. This is what's been going on forever, whether it be the allegations against him for workplace misconduct in various ways, or the way he runs the football team, the way he penny pinches and doesn't spend the way in order he needs to spend if you actually want to win, the way he put some damn casitas in State Farm Stadium and jacked up ticket prices for season ticket holders. It just all makes a whole lot of no sense, except for a guy who's like, you know what? Where's my bottom line? And it seems like that's kind of what has been his North Star since taking over. Having said that, he did everything he said he was going to do after firing Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, and this is where we are. So going into the 2025 draft, the Cardinals have three great options, and all of them are going to benefit this team in some form or fashion. So first off, say you look at 16, you're like, you know what? Nope. Best player available, book it. Luckily for the Cardinals, not only Do they know what their absolute strengths are at this point? But they 100% without a doubt know what their weaknesses are. And that sounds like something dumb to say, but it's like when you looked at this Cardinals roster going into 2023, you couldn't even start to formulate a sentence on where to start, on where to begin to think about how to reconstruct this roster. Now it's a lot more clear. Secondary, strength, run game, strength, tight end, strength, offensive line, strength for the most part. Wide receivers, B-. Pass rush, non-existent. Defensive line, non-existent. Interior of the offensive line, TBD. It's much more clear for what the game plan needs to be and what the roadmap needs to be in order to infuse more talent into this roster. So if the Cardinals stick and pick at 16, I've been on the record as saying, take the best offensive lineman available. Well, they need pass rush. They need interior defensive line. Yeah, I know. And if you don't protect Kyler Murray or whoever the quarterback is going to be for the future, none of it works. It doesn't matter how good your pass rush is. If you can't protect Kyler Murray, ask Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, the two last Super Bowls he lost. Yeah, Chris Jones for both of those. Didn't matter. Can't protect Kyler Murray. None of this is going to work. Draft the best offensive lineman, in my opinion. And if not, say it's Jalen Walker. Say it's the best edge rusher that's still there, even though it's a massively deep pass rush group, unlike last season, which I'll get to in the next segment. While best player available, yes, should be the thing. It could be a wide receiver, though. So obviously you're removing who the actual best player available is. You're kind of manicuring it a little bit more towards for the Arizona Cardinals roster in 2025 and beyond as currently constructed. So that's why you draft the best left guard who can play center. You draft the best right tackle who can play guard. That, in my opinion, is much more valuable than drafting the interior defensive lineman hoping he's the next Jalen Carter. Drafting the next interior defensive lineman hoping that he's Aaron Donald. And while that player who the Cardinals pass on very well may be a player like that, it takes, and I had Marcus Mosher, who's one of my most trusted minds that I go to here, especially through the draft. The interior defensive line, it takes a while for players to get acclimated. They've been able to run over centers and right guards and left guards who have to go to French class on Monday. This is different. And with the defense that the Cardinals currently have, they need impact makers immediately, right away. This is not something where it's like, oh, he's going to be good. And that's why I'm so hell-bent on drafting offensive linemen. The offensive line is good right now. It can be elite and needs to be elite starting next season. You bring in some proven talent on the defensive line in the pass rush room, you're off to the races. And that's why I'm so hell-bent on offensive line at 16, if the Cardinals do choose to stick and pick. Because at this point, I would rather the Cardinals solidify a strength even more than go from a D+ to a C on the defensive line by drafting a rookie who may or may not pop his rookie year. The Cardinals have B.J. Ojulari coming back. Darius Robinson, Jonathan Gannon, paraphrasing, he was going to say, Darius Robinson was never healthy last year. So it's kind of an incomplete. So for me, if the Cardinals stick and pick, which is a fantastic option, irrespective of who they choose, should be offensive line. And we'll dive a lot more into this, especially say they go out and get an offensive lineman in free agency. Obviously, things can shift a little bit here. But for now, sight unseen, best offensive lineman at 16. And either way, it is a fantastic option where the Cardinals are at 16 to just stick and pick because we know quarterbacks go much higher than they should. We know that, a wide receiver will probably go before. Ashton Genty might go before the Cardinals. So the Cardinals will have a fringe/bona fide top 10 pick fall to them at 16. It happens every year. So sticking and picking, it's a hell of an option. What if they don't? What if they trade back? Another fantastic option. I'll discuss that next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. So yeah, listen, offensive line is boring, of course. And it's the most important position group in football. Quarterback's the most important player. Offensive line protects the most important player. Most important position group. With all that said, there's another wildly fantastic option for the Cardinals to trade back. And people that I trust in this space, I've been texting with some people, and I had Marcus Mosher again. I had him on recently. I think it was last week or the week before. Check him out. He's a host of Locked On Cowboys, and he does Locked On Draft. He's been all over Pro Football Focus 33rd team. He's written for everybody. The draft sweet spot, if you're outside of the top 10, is really between like 25 and 60. 20 and 60. So if the Cardinals get an offer from a team, like say Ashton Genty's there, or say the receiver from Arizona is there, or say the receiver from Minnesota or Missouri is there, and a team wants to move up from the mid-20s to 16, and they want to give you their second for a first and a third or something like that, if the Cardinals can get a top 60 pick to move back a handful of spots in this draft, and they're not in love with who's there at 16, you do it. It's not every draft. It's not most drafts. But the Cardinals need so much talent that if you can get a B+ and 2 B players instead of an A- and a B player, you do it. It's how you build out a roster. Plus, second-round picks don't make as much money as first-round picks. And I know it's kind of splitting hairs during the first couple seasons, but the contracts are shorter with picks outside of the first round. It's diversifying the portfolio, which is something Monty Ossenfort loves to do. Even if the Cardinals have to move back, a couple spots and get an extra third. Monty Ossenfort had 48 third-round picks last year. You do it. Because even though I say that offensive line is the way to go at 16, you can still get an offensive lineman in the mid-20s and it'll be just fine. Plus you pick up an extra pick. And that could be a receiver. That could be a running back. Like, the running back position is going to be fascinating this draft. And this is no knock on Trey Benson. This is one of the deepest running back classes that we've seen in a long time. And listen, I don't know. I've seen around other outlets saying, you have to draft Cam Scatterboot. No, you don't. Grow up. No, you don't. He went to ASU. Who cares? He didn't even start his career at ASU. Who cares? People are going to forget so quickly. Oh, he went to ASU. Oh, must be a Cardinal. Same state. Stop it. Grow up. That is where I'll induce they just extended James Conner. There will be plenty of running backs who will be close to his talent or better in years to come. That is the absolute last need that the Cardinals have. Now, if you want to take a flyer on a back in the 5th round or something, we're having a different conversation. But stop it. Regardless, coming back here. Trading back is a very, very sexy option because it was a sexy option because, it could it could fill, this is what it is. It could raise the talent floor, raise the foundation, raise the level of competitiveness next year in a different way. Because really, when it comes down to it, the majority of the draft, 70%, 65% is a total crapshoot for who's going to make it and who isn't. You've got the 1%ers. You've got the flyers who make it all the way to the top, Mr. Relevant, Brock Purdy, things like that. You got the outliers. But the more bites of the apple you can get with the highest draft grades possible, you take advantage of. And being at 16, it's a very swingy kind of pick. It's a very, very much a sweet spot for teams who look to move up, especially with how this draft is going to go. You're going to get Cam Ward, you're going to get Shadur Sanders, you're going to get guys up top, and then you're going to get Abdul Carter's going to go, the top 3. You're going to get your top flight edge rushers, and then your top flight interior defensive linemen. The Cardinals will be looking at 16 like, man, this is a top 10 pick. And other teams are going to see that too. And the thing that Monty Ossenfort has been very good at, like excellent at, is getting value when trading back. He hasn't been giving away picks. He's been getting very, or he's happy staying. I'm sure the Monty Ossenfort, and I know he gave all the coach speak at the combine. Oh, we're going to leave all our options open. Oh, Josh Sweat, you can play for Jonathan Gannon. Yep. Oh, you're not going to get anything out of these guys. You're not going to get anything. Yeah, we're going to weigh all options. Cliche, and that's fine. You don't want your GM giving stuff away. You don't want your owner and GM giving away false information or telling everybody at the combine in 2019, oh, we're drafting Kyler Murray. This isn't that. At this point, I was going to do a show on Monty Ossenfort today, by the way. I might tomorrow. If you think that Monty Ossenfort has done a poor job up until this point, I disagree. Especially through the draft. Now, free agency, I mean, you want to cancel out Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones for Mack Wilson and Kazir White, fine. The Mack Wilson and Kazir White win. If you want to cancel out Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, and Sean Murphy-Bunting for Mack Wilson and Kazir White, I would still take Kazir White and Mack Wilson being impact makers much more than seeing the downside of two guys who got hurt randomly and Sean Murphy-Bunting, who led the team in turnovers, even though he was a shell of himself from his time in Tampa Bay. Monty Ossenfort has done a fantastic job in drafts. Yeah, the Tip Ryman pick, sure. Third round pick, we'll see. Very early. But other than that, he's done an excellent job. So I don't understand why people would question his ability at this point. He has the perfect mindset towards being a GM for a guy at 16 who has all the cards on the table. Stick and pick, cool. Trade back, cool. Next segment, a little bit more outside the box, but still, I don't think there's a downside whatsoever or any sort of irrationale infused into the idea of using the 16th pick as part of a package to trade for a star. But if you're at 16 and you see that this is one of the deepest drafts we've seen in quite some time, and you could pick up an extra premium pick to move back 5 or 7 spots, hell, move back twice. If you're going to move back once, move back again. Because the Cardinals need so much still, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Moving back twice, pick up an extra couple picks. And I understand that when I say the Cardinals they have so many holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball, why would I say pick an offensive lineman at 16? Because I would much rather solidify a strength than take a weakness from a D+ to a C. For so long, again, going into my 9th season hosting this podcast, for so long I've said the Cardinals need strengths, and they haven't had any for a large chunk of the time I've hosted this podcast, aside from, the running back room with Chris Johnson and David Johnson. Patrick Peterson as a guy, until like 2016 or 2017. The offensive line's been bad. The pass rush has been fine, but it's really just been Chandler Jones and Calais for a while. Like, the Cardinals haven't really had a strength. Larry Fitzgerald was, by himself after that 2015 run, and he was just getting paid handsomely to stay. So now that the Cardinals do have strengths, I'd much rather see them dig their teeth even more into those strengths to solidify them, to be able to cover up for the weaknesses a little bit more, and then use the later draft capital to fill the holes on the defensive side of the ball, combined with the free agent class that is set to take place with the money that they've got. But if they're going to trade back, there's no floor to how far back they'll trade back. 16 to 20, 20 to 25. Pick up 2 extra picks and pick within 10 picks of your original pick. Could be worse. The fun one. I thought about leading with this one, but I didn't want to. I felt like it would be a little trolly, so we're not going to do that. We'll do it. We'll do it here in the third segment. Cardinals, another great option at 16. Trade it in a package for a star. I'll discuss what that could look like next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Because when it comes down to trading for a star, this is where everything kind of bends your brain. But I do think, like, for context, the craziest thing we've seen so far with Monty Osford is him trading from 3 to 12 back up to 6. It's like, oh, what just happened? You just kind of saw, oh, okay. Oh, man. Oh, my God, they traded back. Oh, my God, they got an extra first. Oh, my God, they got a second. And then you didn't even have time to digest that. You're like, wait, the Cardinals are back on the clock? They moved up to 6 with Detroit? And they kept their first-round pick for the next year? What is going on here? I think that's more shocking than anything the Cardinals would do at 16. Because if they weren't going to take an offensive lineman at 16, and you can package 16, a future second or whatever, for a star, that's a great option also. For those that, if this, you've heard me say this, if this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. First off, maybe make tomorrow your second listen. On defense, they don't need to get younger. They need guys who are world beaters now. World beaters that we've seen do that at the NFL level now. They're a rocket ship that is being fueled right now. They've got the secondary. They've got Mac Wilson. We'll see what happens with Kazir White. They've got Darius Robinson coming in, which is set to be kind of after an incomplete rookie season. BJ Ojulari coming off injury. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He hasn't been able to his first 2 seasons. They need that spark. And that comes from proven veteran stars on the defensive side of the ball. Imagine what this secondary will be with the pass rush, with an interior defensive line that can actually collapse the pocket from the interior. Imagine what this secondary could be if they have to cover for a second and a half or 2 seconds less every snap. And that's why, if the Cardinals have the opportunity to trade for a pass rusher, or the opportunity to trade for a Myles Garrett and Cleveland, like Andrew Berry already said, he ain't going anywhere. And I know that. And the majority of this really is, it's obviously speculative, but it's like, if it were to make sense for the Cardinals, I'm going to talk about it. So like a Max Crosby, okay? He's young-ish. He makes a lot of money. So do all stars. So two things. And again, I'm just going to continue to hopefully inception you into thinking this way. Just because you trade away draft capital doesn't mean you don't get something in return. People forget you get something in return. They just like, oh no, draft picks. Stop. Oh, he makes a lot of money. So do all really good players. And the Cardinals haven't had a whole lot of them recently. So I know that it's a foreign concept. All good players make a really, really lot of money unless you're on your rookie scale contract. And guess what? A lot of bad players make a whole bunch of cheese. Ask the 49ers. There are a lot more Paul Georges out there than there are guys who make half of that and actually play for their paycheck. So trading for a star, yeah, selfishly, seeing something splashy for the Cardinals to do would be great. And listen, this part, because of how deep this draft is, and because of how conservative Monty Ossenford has been, at least in free agency. I know he gave Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones maybe a little bit more cheese than you'd like to see, but they had to pay somebody last year. They knew they weren't going to contend. So, you got to pay somebody. This would completely flip the script on people's expectations and definition of who Monty Ossenford is. It wouldn't make him so dangerous. In a good way. It would make him so rationally unpredictable that he'd be a massive weapon for the Cardinals. Nobody expects the Cardinals to do something like this because they never have, really. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, that was owner to owner. Zach Ertz was a great move because when you can draft players well, you don't have to trade for people. I would love to, if I could choose one of the three, stick and pick, trade back, or trade for a star, I would 100% package 16 to bring in a bona fide star on the defensive side of the ball. Even if they sign one in free agency, this Cardinals defense is so close. I would say, and luckily I only have 2 minutes left, so I don't have to expound upon, well, what about the offense? I would say that if you add a star on defense or add a star on offense, the defense is closer to being top 7 consistently than the offense. It's close. But what we saw from the defense last year for the majority of the season, you saw teach tape on what Garrett Williams, Max Melton, Budda Baker, and then Dajon Taylor-Demerson can do with Mac Wilson and if Kazir White comes back. If you bring in a star pass rusher or star interior defensive lineman or one of each, this is a top 10 defense. So, yeah, that's probably a little selfish of me. I want to see something flashy. Trade for somebody. I dare you. But what I think, as I get out of here, the order of most likely to happen. Genuinely, the order of most likely to happen. I think trade back is most likely to happen because there are going to be so many teams who want a wide receiver at 16, want Ashton Genty or Omarion Hamilton or whoever it is, or Omarion Hampton, whoever it is. That's a skill position player pick, especially with how quarterback heavy, and then Abdul Carter is going to be gone. The interior defensive line from Michigan is going to be gone. A team in the mid-20s who wants a difference maker, maybe give up their late second-round pick to move up 9 spots. Come the Cardinals in a heartbeat. I think that's one, stick and pick 2, and then trade for stars, a distant third. We'll see so much time. Free agency is obviously going to tell a lot. We'll dive a little bit more into the combine tomorrow as things ramp up there. Do a little Monty as well. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.